Hello, my Crystal Loves Texas Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram family. I'm so happy to be with you here tonight. Gosh, this is one of my first times going on solo, but I'm not really solo because I have a very, very, very special District 131 adjacent. I said adjacent because her district borders 131. But I have a District 131 adjacent relative, adjacent guest, and you may have seen her before. You may be familiar with her. Some of you may not have seen her before. But when I tell you that she has got a lot to say, and she doesn't mind saying it, and she doesn't mind putting you on the spot, and I fully expect her to do that tonight with me. So, without any further ado, there she is. There's
Hey,
Rebecca.
girl.
Hey, Rebecca, how are you?
So I'm in another location today. I had an emergency
Yeah.
and I feel so terribly because normally when I'm not going on the show, which is hardly ever,
Yeah.
I call Crystal ahead of time and say, Crystal, I'm not gonna be able to do it this week because I got such and such. But I had a family emergency. So I'm here remote and I'm here to ask Crystal the hard questions as I
She
normally
she
do.
is, and that's, I promise you, I haven't practiced this at all. And the thing about it is, well, first of all, Rebecca, I've got to say that I'm so blessed, and I am so appreciative of the Houston Area Panhellenic Council giving me the opportunity to come out and speak at their Christmas gala that they had on this past Monday. I was expecting to speak in front of a panel. There were a few hundred people there, but it was a wonderful opportunity for me to really get out there and tell people in District 131 exactly what the things are that I would like to see happen, and to ask of them the things that they know need to happen in their own district. And Rebecca, I got to tell you, I was a little bit nervous because this is the Panhellenic Council. So you've got a member of every branch of the Divine Nine fraternities and sororities there, and they mean business.
Of course they do. Voting
They
is
mean
their
business.
business. So
Yes.
they try to get as many people out to register to vote as possible. So the
Yes.
more people that are out to vote, the more that the more people that they have out to vote, the better it is.
That's right. And they do so much in the community. And the thing about it is, a lot of people don't realize how um, the fraternities and sororities and the Greek organizations, their whole purpose, their sole purpose is to educate and to do service work in the community. And to see them all there together and making a difference together in the community was absolutely mind-boggling. And they were having a good time. They had all different types of games going on, and they had wonderful food. I want to thank the Panhellenic Council President, Brashawn Cockrell of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, and of course, my brother-in-law, Anthony Bryant of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Thank you guys so much for having me out. I really appreciate it. Hey, and if you want me to come back out, I have no problem with that. Um, Also, my sister Kim Dillard, who's a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, she accompanied me there, and she was there the whole time and kind of giving me a lay of the land. But Rebecca, some of the things that they were talking about, and some of the things that were
Well,
of.
wait a minute, Crystal. You got to shout out the whole campaign team that's a part of the Divine Nine. Candice is the Sigma Gamma Rho.
She sure is. Yes,
Dave
she
is
absolutely is.
a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated.
That's right. What am I thinking? And Xavier, he was there with us too. He was there. So I had my members. from our own campaign team who are part of the Divine Nine. Of course, like Rebecca said, Xavier Williams, he's a member of Kappa Alpha Psi, my best friend for the last 40 plus years, and Candace Joseph. She is a member of Sigma Gamma Rho sorority, and she is always right there when we need her. And one thing about Candace, Rebecca, Candace shoots from the hip. She does not pull any punches when it comes to being honest with you.
Right. Right.
And she's been extremely honest with us and some of the things that we need to do, some of the things that we need to change. She was one of the ones, along with one of our very good friends in the community, who was a community and education advocate, who said it would be advantageous to you to keep your branding, because that Rosie the Riveter branding is good, but it needs to be Rosie 2.0. So
Exactly.
you need to update it. So that's what we did. And if you haven't seen our new branding, I'll make sure that it's attached to this video when this video is posted to Facebook. But there's a lot of things that the people who have been on our campaign team have really rallied together to help us get done. Rebecca.
Yes, that's absolutely right. And also Gary too. Gary Harrison. It's okay, Crystal. You had a long day today. We
I
both
had a
had.
long day. I had a
Yeah.
long day, guys. Let me tell you. And I know I say this all the time. I did not go home before I left school. I left school at 4:45. I had to try to get to the bank before 5, and then I came straight to the studio. So I am so happy I got here. I was running a little bit late, but you know what? And Rebecca, let me take this school lanyard off. What am I
See, that's
thinking?
what I said. I'm not there to correct you.
What am I thinking? That's supposed to be off. School stays at school. But you
But at
know,
least your constituents know that you're a classroom teacher and
oh
you are
boy.
serious about education. And that's one of the things that you're going to work on when you go to Austin is real education reform.
And the thing about it is, Rebecca, when you called me and you said, Crystal, you should call this episode "A Teacher at the Table." Exactly
Exactly.
what did you mean by that? Because it makes a lot of sense. Because at the table, and I mean a figurative table, at the table is where things get done.
Right.
That's what people say when they say we need to get to the table and work through this. That's
Well,
where
the
that's
reason
where
I
decisions are made.
the reason I came up with it was because one thing Crystal and I talk about all the time, especially amongst our teacher friends, one thing that frustrates us more than anything is people making decisions about education and they've never been in education, right? So you have the politicians on all sides of the aisle. At the state level, at the local level, and at the national level who never really sat in a classroom. Or if they sat in a classroom, they hadn't sat in a classroom in years and they
Yeah,
still figure their school is the same way it was 30, 40, 50 years ago, and it's
yeah,
not anymore. So now Crystal is going to focus on a myriad of issues,
yeah.
but one of the most important issues for her campaign, I mean, let me know if I'm misspeaking, Crystal, because I don't want to misspeak, is focusing on education, real education reform.
And you know what, Rebecca, with the four tenets of my campaign, or the four pillars of my campaign, I don't have a laundry list of things that I want to see happen. I think it is prudent to only put forth the things that you feel that you can really affect in a meaningful way. And those four things that I would like to see happen for my district and for all of Houston are going to simply fall into four categories. The first one is accessibility. And Rebecca, what I mean by accessibility is the ability for people to be able to forge out a better life for themselves. Educationally, that means opportunities for people to be able to have access to higher education in a way that's affordable, where they're not owing for the next 35 to 40 years. Rebecca, there have been people who've passed away, seniors who are still paying for student loans.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make sense. We've got to do something about that. And we got to ask ourselves this: why are the powers that be making accessibility to education so difficult to come by and so expensive that it's discouraging? Why do you think
Right.
that is?
Simple. Because if you're in debt, it discourages you from going back to school. And we know if you're in so much debt, those graduate degrees that gives you more money and puts you in another stratosphere in life, you're not going to be able to do. So therefore, you won't have any upward mobility to move up. And if you don't have any upward
Yes,
mobility, you can't pay off that debt. If you don't have any upward
absolutely.
mobility, you can't be a homeowner. If you don't have that upward mobility, you don't, there's a lot of things that will restrict you from uh being a more productive member of society.
And you know what, Rebecca? Here's the thing with that accessibility aspect, you have got to, when you begin to peel back those layers, and it's important that you peel back those layers. When you begin to peel back those layers, what you've got to look at square in the face is the fact that people who would move to limit the accessibility of something like education must be doing it. You have to wonder, what perspective are they coming from? Why would it be advantageous to limit someone's education? Well, there's a very simple reason, like you said, because education is power.
Yeah, exactly.
It's power,
Exactly.
and people are afraid of the loss of power. And I look at it completely differently. I look at it from this perspective: if people out there have the ability to garner as much education as they can, as their finances will afford them in a reasonable way, those are people, just like you said, who become a lot more apt to be able to pour into society, to be able to become critical thinkers. Critical thinkers are our inventors. Critical thinkers are our philosophers. Critical thinkers are our doctors. Critical thinkers are our scholars.
Right.
Those are critical thinkers, and a critical thinker is a problem solver.
Right. And then it prevents us from teaching our students, going back to the
Yes.
education thing, it prevents us from teaching our students how to critically think.
Absolutely. And it must be, I've never thought of someone else's education or someone else's ability
Crystal,
to get.
I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty. Give me about 3 minutes to straighten it out, and I'll be right back.
Yes.
Okay.
But what I'm saying to Rebecca basically is that critical thinking is what moves our world forward. Without critical thinking, would you have a NASA? Would you have an MD Anderson? Would you have a Cedar Sinai Hospital where people are learning to solve problems? That's what critical thinking is. It's problem solving. And that's where your teachers come in. That's where accessibility comes in. Whenever someone moves to limit your accessibility to something, there must be a reason that that's happening. And and that's only in education. Ladies and gentlemen, another aspect of critical thinking is, I'm sorry, of accessibility, is accessibility to safe and livable neighborhoods. And accessibility means something that people want to, what makes a neighborhood attractive to move into? What makes a neighborhood somewhere where people want to raise their families? The accessibility of good schools, the accessibility of transportation, the fact that that neighborhood is going to be a safe place to raise their family. It's going to be a place that is going to be stable for a number of years. All of that has to do with what makes young families want to move back in to neighborhoods. We were talking the other day to some constituents at one of my fundraisers. We were talking to some constituents who were from the District 131 area. And one thing that they said was this: I asked each of them to please give me one reason, one thing that you think is challenging to District 131. What would preclude a young family from wanting to move back into that area and raise their children? And something that one of the younger ones, who was a Gen Xer, said to me is this: I want safety. I want safety. Safety ties right into accessibility. She wants to know that as a single person who does not even have a family yet, that it's going to be safe for her to go grocery shopping when it's dark outside. She wants to know that there are going to be street lights. She wants to know that there are going to be enough law enforcement patrolling around so that she doesn't feel threatened every time she's getting out of her car carrying a bag of groceries or coming from the gym. You have to feel comfortable and confident in where you live. And there's no um, more terrible feeling than feeling as though you cannot feel safe or sleep comfortably, or you've got to sleep with your fist balled up or with something under your pillow because you're afraid someone is going to kick in the door. And, let's think about that 131 area. Let's think about that area. That area started off in the early, especially around the South Park area, that Gulf Gate area, that area around Almeida Mall. It was an older area. That area started off in the 1960s and 1950s as a middle class area for young families after World War II. And it was a very nice area. People were trying to get there to raise their families. People were trying to get there to buy houses. Uh, and and that was for a long time. If you look right over on Wayside and almost to the Gulf Freeway, that's where the original headquarters of NASA. Of course, people were trying to get into this area, and the houses were small. The houses were modest houses, but they were affordable to young families and GIs coming back from the war, and you could raise your family there. You didn't have to worry about whether there were going to be drugs in the area. You didn't really have to worry about whether or not your neighbors were going to be firing guns on New Year's Eve and the 4th of July, and a bullet coming down and hitting the house or hitting someone in the yard. There were things that people didn't have to worry about. Are we back there yet? No, we're not quite there yet. But if you drive into those areas right now, if you just drive into them, what you can see is the regentrification of these areas. You can see building taking place. You can see housing being built. You can see and affordable housing. You can see nice apartment complexes being erected. There are many, many reasons why a person would want to move back in there. Well, I'm not going to say right now everything is perfect, because there's still some challenges, but every day the area is being sought out, and more things are coming there. You've got drugstores opening up. You've got grocery stores. I just got a little bead on a piece of information a couple of weeks ago that there could be a very nice, large grocery store coming into the area that's right off of 288 between Orem and Almeda Genoa. And I know that would be something that would attract people. Younger people are going to want things like gyms. They're going to want to have churches. They're going to want to have recreation facilities. They're going to want to have entertainment and restaurants. And I can see those kinds of things coming back over into that 131 area and really building up again. And that's what we want to see. That's what I mean by accessibility, ladies and gentlemen. Something else that is really, really important to me, and I hope Rebecca can jump back on at some point, but I want you guys to really understand where I'm coming from. Another thing that those constituents said was that they would really like to see accountability. Accountability from our government, accountability from our lawmakers, accountability from our municipal uh, lawmakers and entities, just accountability in making sure that there's transparency in what is going on. So many times decisions are made and we find out about those decisions way after the fact, which is not where we want to be. And that's why when Rebecca said, let's call this segment a seat at the table, a teacher at the table, is because the kinds of things that a classroom teacher is going to bring to the seat of District 131 is, first of all, more than anything, a classroom teacher has got to be a problem solver before anything else happens. If you can imagine the kinds of things that happen in a classroom on a daily basis, and especially with my students, I'm a middle school teacher. So you've got all kinds of encounters that happen between those students, some friendly, some not so friendly, but they've got to be resolved for, for us to get down to the meat of what we need to do in that classroom. In my classroom, guys, my allergies get out of control, but I try to solve the problem with natural local honey and that kind of thing. But I think I might end up having to take an allergy shot. But I want you to know that problem solving is one of the things that I do best. As a problem solver, unlike what you see when you look at clips from what happens in Congress and what happens in the state legislature and what happens between the different political parties and some of the representatives from each one, for the last 7 or 8 years, there's been nothing but bickering back and forth. That's not how our country started. Yes, there were discrepancies and there were disagreements. But if you've ever heard of something called the Bill of Rights, that was placed in there because we could not see eye to eye on certain things. There was a level of distrust. So what happened is that the anti-federalists decided that they too, everybody wanted to make sure that this country stayed together and that we were a good cohesive whole. So the anti-federalists, who would be now considered probably the Republican Party, the anti-federalists said, listen, they were the ones who did not necessarily want big government. They wanted to have more states more in control, but they decided, listen, our goal is the same, to have a cohesive government that is able to work for the entire body of people. So we need to figure out how to do it. So they put forth a Bill of Rights because the Constitution was already written. It was already written. It was a done deal. And they wouldn't sign it. They wouldn't sign it. They said, because the way it looks right now, all you guys are doing is telling me that the things that you say you'll do. But I don't trust you in that manner. I don't trust you in that way. So we need to add this Bill of Rights. And that Bill of Rights spelled out everything that they wanted to make sure was put in writing so that we could, the feet could be held to the fire in the event that there was a discrepancy about anything. That's what transparency is all about. I've been doing my podcast now for almost 4 years, since 2021. That is 4 years, since 2021, the fall of 2021. And the reason that I started my podcast is because I wanted everyone to know exactly what makes me tick. I wanted everyone to know the positive things that are going on here in Houston, especially in District 131, the district that I grew up in and that I went to school in. and still have many, many friends and neighbors there. I wanted them to know, and I wanted Houston to know that there are wonderful things that come out of that district. There are wonderful people that come out of their district, that go so far in life and that contribute so much back to society. That was the way that I could do it. I wanted to shine the light on some of those individuals and some of those things that occurred to help raise that district up into the place that it is right now. You know, recessions happen and the economy changes, but even when those things take place, all places are going to feel the burn of that. They're going to feel the effect of that. But it's a matter of being able to come together and stick together, to stick to what's positive about that particular place, and to make sure that because a challenge takes place, that challenge doesn't become the demise of that particular area. And I'm so happy that I started to do that podcast. Now, guys, I want you to think about this. A newsletter, there's nothing wrong with a newsletter, but a newsletter is very, very 20th century to be candid about it. And that simply means that in this day and time, our technology has graduated to the point that people want something real time. They want to see what's happening and know what's happening real time, because if they can see it with their own eyes and hear it with their own ears, they know that they believe their eyes. They believe their eyes. Okay. They don't always believe what people write, because a written account is always a secondhand account. And my podcast makes sure that the people that I will be representing get to see me and see what's happening and see what is the decisions that are being made real time. Now, are all the decisions that are made on the state level going to be ones that we like? Absolutely not. Because that's part of what this system is about. It's about different ideologies coming together and having to listen to the other one so that decisions can be made for the good of the whole. That's what this is about. That's what we've been doing in this country for 250 years, just about. Okay? That's the way that it's done. It's not about one party or one ideology coming and bringing to the table everything that they want and saying, I'm not going to budge. I want what I want, and that's just it. And folding their arms and walking back to their corner. No. In 1787, when they had that constitutional convention in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in that hot convention hall, the decisions were not unanimous. They weren't unanimous, and they never have been since that point. But we've gotten things done. We've moved this country forward into a place where it is the most productive country, the most admired country by many, and a place where people want to come to. They still, even with the challenges that we have right now, people still want to be here. That's saying something for who we are and what we have been able to overcome. It really is. But being able to bring information and bring ideas and bring decisions to the people so that they can see what's happening real time, that's something that your representatives owe you. That's not a gift. That's your right. Okay. And if it means something as simple as turning on Facebook Live or turning on YouTube Live or Instagram Live, you should always be able to know what's going on at that state house in Austin at least once a week. You need to know what's been put on the table. You need to be able to talk to those representatives and tell them what's going on in your district, even if you can't get everything done that you want at that particular time. The people that represent you need to make sure that you know exactly what they're doing and how they are working and fighting on your behalf, because it's not about them. It is not about them. It's not about any legacies. It's not about uh, just doing things the status quo like it's always been done. For times such as these, you need leadership and you need decision making that that sets itself aside from what's been done for the last 30 years, 20 years, 15 years. And we're in some challenging times that we haven't seen before. So that's something that we really need to think about. And we really need to do some soul searching and decide if we want things to go the way they've gone for the last 20, 25 years, or if we're ready to see things really take a change in our district and catapult it forward. Another thing that those District 131 constituents talked about when they were at my fundraiser. And I had to, I didn't give them these questions ahead of time. I wanted them to be very candid, and I wanted them to really speak from the heart and tell me the things that what the challenges were. And they said equity. And I had to ask, what exactly do you mean? Because equity can mean many, many things to many people. And they said, especially one young lady, she said, equity means that I know that if I live over in River Oaks, if I live over in Memorial, if I live out in Greatwood, I know that I'm not going to have people dumping trash in the middle of my esplanade at night. I know that they're not going to be stray animals running around and tearing into the trash or tearing into what's been left behind and spreading it all over the road. I know that that's not going to happen because I pay for that amenity. What amenity are they talking about? They're paying for the services. But you know what, ladies and gentlemen, we all pay for city services. Why should one neighborhood look different from another or have the services much more dependable than another? Why should that be the case? But it is. I'm sure that everyone out there will agree that it is. And what can be done about that? Well, someone told me one time that the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And that doesn't mean going up and berating the council members at City Hall and cussing them out and going off on a tangent. It's not what that means. That means every time that there is a city council meeting, every time that there is a decision being made on the state level about services and shared services that are shared between the state and city governments, every time that those things are on the table, representatives from District 131 have got to be there. They can't send a letter or send a petition. They have got to be there, and they've got to be able to stand up and tell those bodies of lawmakers exactly what's happening in their district and why they will not stop until things begin happening. That's how things get done. It's not because if you simply wait and hope that things will get better, there are a lot of stories that end in a really bad way when that was the modus operandi. Okay, when that was the way that things were being done. It's very important that we know what our most pressing issues are. In District 131, a lot of people are concerned about safety. A lot of people are concerned about homelessness. A lot of people are concerned about illegal dumping. A lot of people are concerned about police response time. But ladies and gentlemen, when you are one of the 5 largest cities in the nation, we need to look and see if we really have a police force that is equipped to handle, in the Houston Police Department, equipped to handle a city that big. And why aren't young men and women going into police work? Okay, first of all, it's more dangerous than it's ever been. But what can we do to allocate funds? What can we do in a joint way to allocate funds to our police services, the sheriff's department, the police, to law enforcement, so that we can recruit more people into law enforcement? When someone's graduating from college or they've gotten their associate's degree at a community college or a city college, and the pay grade for a job that is the most dangerous job in the world is still in the $40,000 or the $50,000, is that something that people are going to want to take a chance and put their lives be in a situation where their lives are in the balance every day? Possibly not. So we've got to figure out ways to encourage more people to go into police work, which trickles down into the safety aspect that we're going to see in our communities, because there are going to be more police if they're paid better. Lots of things like that come into play, and they have a domino effect. If we have better city services, we're going to have neighborhoods that are more inviting for people to come into. But before they come into it, there's got to be an aspect of safety. There's something called the broken window theory. Google it. The broken window theory simply says that if you have an area that is blighted, where there are lots of abandoned buildings, glass broken out, different kinds of things that are unsavory. You have people walking at all times of the night. It has been said that when you have that kind of area, that's the kind of area that's going to invite crime. I'm going to let Rebecca back in because she just got back on the line, but I want her to add to this too. Let's see, Rebecca, can you hear us?
Crystal, when I used to tell you all the time that I'm very slow when it comes to technology, and you would always laugh at me, oh, girl, you smart. You can figure it out. Now you see why I said what I said.
Well, I was just talking about, and I haven't stopped talking since you left, Rebecca. I was just kind of on a little tangent, but that's okay. It's an important tangent. But I was talking about the broken window theory. And that theory explains, and it's a proven theory, that when you have an area or when you have a neighborhood and there are windows broken out of shops and houses and businesses and they're abandoned, that's the kind of environment that crime is attracted to, because it gives the illusion that no one cares and no one's paying attention. So when criminals want to that when they want to set up their headquarters somewhere, that's the place they want to be. However, when people come into that area and they begin fixing up the houses, repairing those windows, painting the shops, moving into the storefronts, moving into the homes, and criminals see that kind of thing, and it looks like people care, it's gonna give the illusion that people care and that people are paying attention, and that's not where they want to be.
Right. I think that's part of the reason why so many people have moved out of certain neighborhoods and certain zip codes,
Okay.
because the neighborhood doesn't seem like it's conducive to the environment. Um, but but if you and then you have companies, these huge companies that come in and they invest in the land. First of all, they buy the land, and they buy the land for dirt cheap. These
Right.
big time investors from these big corporate companies buy. So you may have an acre of land for $1,500, $2,000, and then the investors buy the property up and at that cost, and then they build houses and apartments and jack your rent
Yes.
up to $2,000, $3,000, or you ended up paying a $1,700, $1,800 mortgage, um, when they've only paid $15 to $2,000 of the land. So you have those situations, and this is why they come in neighborhoods, and then the property values skyrocket, and then the taxes skyrocket, which prices people out of these neighborhoods, right?
Well, yeah, well, and one thing about that, see, that's a catch-22 because you want your neighborhoods to be reborn. You
You
want
do,
that.
but you also want to
And
be able to afford them.
yeah, and you want there it to be a place where young families want to move into. So that's
Right.
why it's going to be important for your state and your local lawmakers to help develop partnerships with
Yes,
builders
yes,
so that homes and livability in certain areas is still conducive to young families moving in and wanting
yes,
to be there.
yes,
And
yes,
when you were gone, I was saying that I have that I was told by a pretty reliable source that there's going to be, food deserts have been something that have plagued 131 for a long time. There are
yeah,
areas where you've got grocery stores, but then there are huge stretches where there are no grocery stores.
right.
And that's the kind of thing that makes it very, very difficult as far as livability
Yeah,
when you've
it
got to
is.
drive 5 miles to get to a grocery store.
It is. It is. So, and that's what a lot of our local politicians have been, our local and our state politicians, a lot of them have been talking about that incessantly, right? They've been
Yes,
talking about how to make it affordable, how to make it more affordable, and what can they do on a policy level to make things more affordable
right.
in nicer areas where people can live and raise families back
Right.
in the district. I think for
Yes.
the longest time, and I've even talked about this with my own state representative, I think for the longest time, it's been very clandestine in the sense that the state representatives do what they do, the city councils do what they do, the Congress people do what they do, and everybody is in their little bubble, and everybody feels like their ideas is what's best for the bubble. And what it's going to take, especially now in 2024, I'm sorry, Lord have mercy, Jesus. It's 2026. What's going to take now is for all hands on deck, right? And we say that, but what does that look like, right? So all hands on deck looks like your city councilman talking to state representatives, your state representatives talking to your congress people, and coming together as a cohesive unit to figure out how to make these neighborhoods work best for the constituents.
And you
Now,
know what, Rebecca? And you know what, Rebecca? I'm gonna jump in right there and throw this in. And we were talking to someone probably, I'm gonna say maybe 6 months ago. And one thing that they said was this: whenever you are really looking to make things happen, there are certain communities that are always going to force a seat at the table. They're going to
right,
force it. And there are certain communities that are going to be a little more passive in that happening. And this person said, it's the squeaky wheel that gets the grease. If you want things to happen, you better go to the meetings. You better speak before those lawmaking bodies and be there consistently until they get tired of hearing from you. That's got to
and
be the case.
in that same regard, the politicians, and you know what, I made a promise to myself that I was going to stop saying politicians. I was going to start calling them public servants because that's what they are.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, they
Yes.
they are public servants. They represent the public good. They are the servant that represents for the public good.
Right.
um they're going to have to, and this is what I'm asking you, Crystal. This is one of my hot seat questions that
Yes.
I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to ask you in front of everybody else. Can you make the commitment, or is it possible for you to make the commitment that once you win your seat,
Yes.
in Jesus' name, you win your seat, that for your constituents in your 131 district, that not only will you have something for them to come to you, like a district advisory committee or district advisory council, but you have town halls and virtual meetings and keeping your podcast going to let your constituents know what's going on.
Well, you know what, Rebecca? It's so funny because great minds think alike. When you dropped off of the screen for a couple of minutes, that's exactly what I talked about, and that is, it's the responsibility in this day and time for lawmakers, be they state or national or local, to keep their constituents informed about what's going on and to give
Right.
them a voice in what's going on. Hang on one second. Now, what I mean by that is that 4 years ago, we decided after the election, we decided to keep this podcast going with exactly that in mind. And what I mean by that is there are things that people that need to be discussed. There are things that are scathing issues right now that so many people don't even know are going on.
Yeah.
And it needs to be brought before people. They need to know what's going on because they need to make decisions in their lives based upon that. Rebecca, there's no excuse at this point, and I'm just going to call it what it is. A newsletter, Rebecca, is very, nothing wrong with it.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing wrong with it. But it certainly needs to be done in tandem with a
Yeah.
podcast or a radio show because there's nothing like real time information.
Right. Exactly.
Yes,
Exactly.
exactly. And people need to be able to call in. And the thing about it is, Rebecca, I could see where the pushback would be if there were if it were cost prohibitive. But
Right.
it's not cost prohibitive, Rebecca. That can be done for free.
Right.
And giving constituents an opportunity to call in, to voice their opinion, to say what's on their minds, and say what they feel about the decisions being made, and ask, representative, when can we get a bus and come up there and speak on behalf of this happening in our community?
Right. Because even as politically astute and in tune as I am, I didn't know that, just going back to the teacher thing briefly, I didn't know that as educators, as sitting educators in the classroom that was getting paid, I did not know that we could go up to Austin to advocate for not only our schools, but our parents, our community, and simply because, and I know, and that's kind of embarrassing to admit, especially since I do have a degree in political science. But I always thought if you are a paid educator, like, I don't think you were allowed to go up and to speak on behalf of your students, your students,
Oh my
your
gosh, but
parents.
you're but before, even before you're an educator, you're a community member. That's your
Right,
right. That's your right.
right,
But what we didn't know, what you're right, what we didn't know is this. How do you go about doing that? And
right,
and now, Rebecca, with the advent of the internet, you got with the advent of AI, come on. There's no reason why we should not be taking an active role in everything that happens to us and around us right now.
right. And like I
Because
said,
all you got to do is, yeah, all you got to do is put that information into a queue, and push search, and you've got it. They'll tell you exactly when those meetings take place. They'll tell you exactly when the legislature is in session. They'll tell you exactly what's going to be on the agenda, and they'll tell you how long you can speak, how many speakers they'll listen to. All of that is part of
Right.
what we
But like
can
I said,
do.
at the time, and I'm just being honest, I'm being
Yeah,
transparent. At the time, I didn't know, as an educator who is, being paid to be in the classroom,
right.
I didn't know that I was able to do that. And like I said, nobody told me that I couldn't. I assumed that I could not. So
Yeah,
if anybody like, and then if you have people like me who supposed to know better,
yeah.
right?
People have got to
What
tell.
about people who don't know, like at all, who's not nowhere near informed about
Great point. And that's where your forward thinking lawmakers are going to come into play, because you've got to be able to introduce this information to people. Like you said, they didn't know they had the right to do that.
it?
And
Right,
sometimes people don't necessarily want to tell people that they have the right to do that, because what that does is makes them have to be much more transparent. They see
hmm,
exactly what you're doing and what you're not doing. They see exactly if you are there for to vote on certain things that are on the floor, or if you're skipping the votes. They see that kind of thing.
right,
If
right,
it's transparency there, they see that kind of thing, and everybody does not necessarily want to get caught with their hair up.
right.
There was an old
So
commercial. Yeah, there was an old commercial that said, "Don't get caught with your hair up or with your hair in curls." People don't necessarily want to get caught like that, but people need to know what their rights are as citizens, and the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
right. And that's going back to the curriculum when we were talking about the Crystal, what's the name of that curriculum again? Bluebonnet. When we were
Blue
talking
on
about
it. Oh my
when
gosh,
we
yes.
had the State Board of Education, Stacy Chang, when we had her on, and she was talking about how you had all of these people who from a certain area in a certain community in Texas that was pushing the Bluebonnet curriculum.
Yeah.
And here we are, Houstonians, who's supposed to be the loudest and the largest in the room, but also the loudest was the quietest. And
Right.
we had more at stake than because of and for those of you who are not familiar with Bluebonnet curriculum is a religious laden heavy curriculum. Okay. And it has a lot, and it only leans towards one religion. For those
One
of you,
face. One face.
one
Yes.
faith. So,
And that is Christianity.
and that is Christianity.
And both Rebecca,
And
don't get us wrong, both Rebecca and I are Christian people. But guys,
right,
I want you to just hear me out on this. I am a person who was always raised as a Christian person. I was raised in the United Methodist Church. And here's the thing. When I go out into the world, I'm going to encounter people who were raised in many more ways other than Christianity, many more ways than the United Methodist Church, many more ways than the people right over in Sunnyside, Houston, Southeast Houston, many more ways. That's part of going out and discovering your world. And when you go out and discover your world, you have the opportunity to be exposed to more. You learn why people think and believe and feel the way they do. And you, more than anything, learn to have a respect for other people's positions and other people's faiths. It doesn't mean that you're discounting yours. It
right,
means that because of people's life experiences, they have the faith that they may have. And that's fine. What I look at first and foremost is the way that people treat other people and their environment and the human beings around them. That's what I look at. Leave the faith part to the side. And our Constitution says that anyway. Leave the faith part to the side. It has no place here. But when you experience people where they are, that's when your mind begins to develop and you become a much more global person and a much more global thinker and a critical thinker.
And for me, I am a Christian. Born and raised in the Missionary Baptist Church.
Yes.
Um, very astute in the Bible. Like I am in the history and in politics. And on the flip side of it, as a Christian, I don't have children. So never been pregnant, don't have children.
Mhm.
But if I did have children, I would not want anybody teaching my children scripture. I wouldn't. And because the way I would teach my own children is not going to be the way you teach them. And I don't know what your motives are. Now,
That's right.
again, so I say that not maliciously or facetiously, but I say that, if you are an atheist, right? And I have several friends who are atheists.
Yeah.
But if you have atheists that, don't believe in any God, and you're forcing them to teach creationism as a science,
Yes.
they are not going to teach them in the same manner that I would teach my own children.
Right.
And I'm not
Absolutely.
even mad at them for that. And let's be clear.
That's right.
I'm not upset with them for that, right? Because now you forced something onto them that they
Yes.
clearly don't believe in.
That's right.
So now when they're presenting this information, they're not presenting the information as a science because they don't believe it to be a science. They're presenting the information as this is what y'all forced me to do, and I'm going to do it. And since y'all forced me to do this, I'm gonna do it in my way. So that's why I say, even as a Christian parent, I
Right.
personally would not want anybody teaching my child the Bible because you never know what point of view that they're coming from.
Yes.
And even there are Christians who don't believe. Um, we all have different interpretations of the word. So you
Right.
have even Christians who don't believe in aspects of Christendom. So that's what I'm saying. And
That's right.
so that's the other point of view that I'm coming from. I feel like that's a home issue. That is a
That's right.
parent slash church issue.
And Rebecca, keep in mind that there are many churches that people that, and there's never been a church out there that I have seen, or that is around in a massive way, that is not welcoming for new people to come. They want to share with
Right.
others what their faith is, and that's the place outside of the school. They have different groups for kids to become involved in with every faith.
Right. They have
Yes,
a lot of interfaith churches. They have a lot of
they
interfaith
do.
programs. They have a lot of interfaith. So and this is another thing coming from an educator, right? Who's teach social studies and I mean who teaches social studies and who's taught
History.
history.
Yeah.
We teach religious texts anyway. From sixth grade, it's introduced in elementary school, of course,
Right.
but from sixth grade to 12th grade, they are taught in depthly about the different types of religion, the different
Right.
types of faith.
Right.
So I don't see the need, and this is just coming from a practical sense. I don't understand the need to even go deeper into
Religion.
Christianity,
That's right.
religion, when we teach it as academia anyway.
Well, let me say this, Rebecca. Let me say this. My issue is this. It's a reason. Now, don't think for one moment that the founding fathers were not in exactly this debate around that table in Constitution Hall in Philadelphia. Okay, of course it came up. but they made the decision as a whole to take religion out of politics, okay?
Exactly.
Out of government. And they did that for a reason, okay? And if they could see at that point in time that there were so many differences and discrepancies about religion that it best lived outside of government and made the decision to do that, there's something to be said about that. Okay? There's something to be said about that. Now, I will say this. There are people there are people right now who, Rebecca, in our just in the school that I teach in, we have people of the Muslim faith. We have people of the Hindu faith. We have people of the Buddhist faith. We have Christian people. We have Jewish people. We have every type of religion and language probably that is spoken in most of the world, just in the cohort of children that I teach at my school.
Right.
To
Absolutely.
introduce, that's right. And to introduce one particular religion or one particular faith into their academia and to push that as the only thing that is and that should exist and that is true and correct, I have a problem with that because that's discounting everything that these other people and cultures and ethnicities have brought to the table. It's discounting all of that. Now, are we going to post every tenet of every religion in classes? Are we going to intermingle every tenet of every religion into our curriculums? Where does it stop?
Right. And this is important. And I know probably your constituents are saying, okay, Crystal, that's all well and good, but how is this important? And I'm gonna tell them why it's important. And it's important simply because right now you have a governor and a lieutenant governor who are getting ready to gear up for lawsuits about
Yes.
10 commandments being posted in every single classroom, every single public classroom in the state of Texas.
And
And
we knew there was going to be pushback. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And he is demanding that these same school districts defy the law and hang them up anyway or face punishment from the State Board of Education, which he has jurisdiction over. So when we are talking about these issues, guys, these are directly affecting you. They're directly affecting your children. They are directly affecting your livelihood.
Yes.
And here's the caveat. There's not enough Democrats because right now Texas, if we want to just be real about it, Texas is under a one-party rule right now.
Yeah.
Right? So the Democrats have they do have some leverage, but it's not enough to
But they
turn the
have
tide.
but if they turned out at the polls, they'd have so much more.
They'll have so much more. So all of these things you may not think they are important. You may not think they're important, but they're overly important, right?
Yeah.
Because now we have a situation where we have this one party rule that is strong arming Texans to do what they see fit.
And to
And
believe
then
in
they're
the way that they believe.
right. And they're being emboldened by the national government,
Right.
the federal government.
Yeah.
So I just want to paint that picture clear for everybody. So when we talk about these issues in 131, these issues are affecting 131. Crystal, Kim, and I, for those of you who don't know, Kim is her sister. We sat and we dissect the different area codes of 131. You have a solid Jewish area in 131. You have a solid Muslim area in 131. You have a solid Hindu area
Absolutely.
in 131. And all of these, all of these different demographics that are there, I'm literally, these are whole communities
That's right.
in one district.
Whose children are going to the schools.
And that's what I was getting ready to get. That was going to be my next point. And they're all the children are being mixed in together. So now you see why this is such a big deal. It's not, oh my God, and it is not something to be afraid of course not. But what we are saying, it's a bigger issue than what people are um addressing it to be. Yes, we do have crime. Okay. Yes, we do have high affordability, and that's one of Crystal's four pillars is affordability. But we also have to look at those other areas too, because those other areas are coming directly from the state. And these are some of the issues that Crystal is going to be dealing with in Austin.
And Rebecca, we're going to peel back the layers too next week because, when you said, Crystal, your podcast from now until after the election needs to be about the things that are happening and what you are going to do in this role. And let me say this. People do not consider this a lot because they don't know about it. But
Right.
every school child who's in a public school in Texas has to take the STAR test. Every school child who is in a public school in Texas has a curriculum that has to be approved by the State Board of Education. And those two entities, TEA, the Texas Education Entity, and the State Board of Education, which were originally created to be basically a watchdog for education and the children in the state of Texas to make sure that things were free, fair, and correct.
Right.
They've become a puppet agencies of the governor who has an agenda. And you've got to remember, part of that agenda is to pull the bottom out from under public schools.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
You
Yes.
know,
And
so
not only pull the bottom out of public schools, he wants Texans to bend to his will.
right, absolutely,
So when we talk about these things, oh, Crystal, here's something else I wanted to ask you
yeah,
since we're on this subject.
okay.
So
We got about 3 minutes.
just
I'll make it
three.
fast. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So, and I promise you, I'm gonna be there next week.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna be in person next week. But
Yes.
so, Crystal, one of the things that I wanted to ask you, as a representative, you're not a constituent, as a representative of 131,
Yes.
what do you envision for your district? And I know that's a loaded question, so let me kind of break it down just a little bit.
Yeah. I was gonna say break it down into what aspects.
What do you where do you want to see your district in the future? Where do you want to see it? Because you're lifelong. What makes you kind of different than all the other candidates? You not only are a resident, you're a lifelong resident.
Yeah.
You moved from our district when you was a little girl to 131.
Yes.
So where do you see the district in the future? Where do you want the district to go in the future?
Like I said at the beginning of the podcast, Rebecca, I want to see a District 131 that is such an attractive place for people to want to be, and with the types of resources that people want, just like you have young families going out to Katy, just like you have young families going out to Sugarland and to different areas in Humboldt now. You know, that particular part of Houston is such the district of 131 is such a really attractive place for people to be because of the proximity to everything that is convenient. You've got the best medical center in the country and arguably the world right there within
Mm-hmm.
15 minutes of District 131. You have got the best technology center in the world with NASA being within 15 to 20 minutes of 131. You have got um, all three major league sports teams have places to play right within 15-minute radius of that district. You've got the best medical facilities. All of this is right there within, and if people utilize public transportation, you can get on one or two buses and be there in 30 minutes. I mean,
Or
it's an
less.
attractive, as far as the proximity of this district to all the things that make Houston what it is and that make Houston stand out. It's in such close proximity to everything that it should be where people want to be, not a place where people are running from.
Exactly. 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 So
Well,
I think I asked this question last week, and this is my last one. I promise. I promise.
you got to promise. Go ahead.
So I know I asked this question last week, but just to kind of refresh, to keep it fresh on people's minds, um, as a state representative and um, no, actually, I didn't ask this question last week. What are, and maybe this is probably more in line with your first question, I don't know, but what are some of the problems that you see in District 131 that you want to change?
Um, Probably the number one thing is going to be the proximity of the places and the things that I like to do. I like to have a variety of grocery stores, especially ones where you can get fresh produce at a reasonable price.
Mm.
I like to have accessibility to gyms and workout facilities and parks that are nice parks where you can jog around the park. I
Safely.
like safely. I like to have accessibility to entertainment. When was the last time? Where's the closest movie theater to 131? If someone wanted to go to the theater, I know that for a great majority of people, they're watching streaming now at home. But
Mhm.
that's the kind of thing that people want to take out their families to do for an outing. Think about the restaurants. What about the chain restaurants? Where are the chain restaurants that people like to go to that are in 131? You know, just the things that make, and when we say livability, the things that make people, that attract people to an area. Dog parks.
Oh, we know you big on your animals.
I'm big on my animals, but there are things, the availability of medical services, doctor's offices, dentist offices. They are few and far between in those areas, Rebecca. If we had even something of the semblance of a small little a little medical center area, just a storefront medical center area in a commercial uh, facility, that would be great. We used to have them.
Right.
My doctor, my pediatrician was right there on Cullen.
Right.
Yeah. But Rebecca, listen, let's do our due diligence and let's come in next week and we're going to peel back the layers because I believe that people need to know exactly what's happening in some of these state agencies that have become the puppet agencies of the governor. And this is the same governor who, if he had his way, he would allow the bottom to fall out of public education. It's great. It's great, the thought of not having property taxes. But Rebecca, tell people what that really means and where our schools would be if that were the case.
Okay, so I hear a lot of people talking about how high property taxes are, and I sympathize and I empathize with you. But here's the thing: I'm torn with the property tax thing. And the property tax issue is not a thing, but the property tax issue, I'm very torn. And the reason I'm torn, because I am a public school educator. And I'm torn because most of our schools, 100% of public schools are
Bingo.
funded by tax
Property
dollars,
taxes.
property
Property
tax,
taxes.
okay, property taxes, and it's literally split down the middle.
Right.
Half the state gives, the other half is coming from the well, a third of it, because half the state, well, a big chunk of it is the state, then it's property taxes, and then from the lotto. But the lotto, I never really include the lotto because it's such a small percentage of it.
That's right.
But it's really supposed to be cut up into thirds. But but here's the thing with the property taxes, the citizens have a say in what goes on in these school districts. So these school boards have a say on what goes on in these school districts
Right.
about so if they're taking property taxes away, you essentially don't have a voice. And 100% of the decisions and 100% of the money is coming from the state. So what does that mean? That means you no longer have a say in your school district.
And you have no say in what is taught. You have no say in how it's taught. You have no say in what the salaries will be. You have no say in whether or not certain populations will be welcome in those public schools. You have no say in whether or not students with disabilities will be served in those public schools. All of
Right.
those things.
The
All of those
reason that
things.
parents can go and I don't want to say complain, because
Yeah.
parents have a right to voice their concerns about what's going on in their school, right? But here's the thing. And I know a lot of times as educators, we can get bogged down with the parents and, what their ideas are. But here's the thing. Parents, you will no longer have a say in what goes on in your child's school. The reason you have a say now is because your property taxes pay for everything that goes in and outside that school door. Okay. Your property tax. So that's why you're able to go and visit your child's teacher. This is why you're able to go and drop things off for your children or for the school. This is why you're able to walk through the school and volunteer if you choose to, because your property taxes pays for. When they say that the community are stakeholders, the reason the community is a stakeholder is because they pay property taxes. So
And
because
Rebecca,
they pay property taxes, they have a say in what's going on. We call that
make no mistake with this either. People don't know how that really trickles down. If someone decides like if someone decides like one of the largest school districts in Texas right now is deciding to take different things out of schools, art funding, music funding, funding for humanities and any theater funding, someone else can decide if there's going to be a football team, if there's going to be a baseball team, or if there's just going to be a chess team. Someone else can decide if you're going to be able to have cheerleading, if you're going to be able to have basketball, if you're going to have many of the things that keep the kids motivated to want to be there. But Rebecca, we're going to talk about how all that ties in to these state agencies and how they operate and how they were designed to operate. But did you want to add one more thought before we go ahead and end for tonight?
I do. On next week and the week after, 3 things are coming up. Well, one of the things I'm gonna let you talk about, I'm gonna let you talk about your own fundraiser. But 2 things that's coming up. Crystal's campaign team and her volunteers will be walking District 131.
Yes.
We're going door to door, we're knocking, so you won't have to see us behind a computer screen. We're gonna be, and I started back exercising, getting ready for this.
We're gonna be out there in the district walking.
Getting ready for this undertaking. But we will be knocking on doors. Please answer us, okay? We're not knocking on your door. We not Jehovah's Witness, and we not Amway. We're not trying to sell you nothing.
And we'll be answering questions too. If you've got questions you want to ask me, when we're at your door, when you see us in the neighborhood in those Crystal Dillard for Texas shirts, you will you first of all, you can't miss them. Okay, it's got a big campaign sign on the shirt. But
Right.
when you see us, we are ready. I am ready to tackle your tough questions. Sometimes the reality is I don't have the answer, but one thing I will do is tell you the truth about it. Rebecca,
Right.
let me say this. Next week, we're going to be talking about TEA. We're going to be talking about the State Board of Education, and we may actually have someone here from one of the teachers unions here. So
Okay.
yes. So please tune in next week. Listen, please, we can't do this without you. My campaign as a classroom teacher is a grassroots campaign. It's a grassroots campaign, which means that I need every other teacher, every other retired teacher, every other educator, anyone who has any touch point at all to education, to please log in to Crystal Dillard, the numeral 4, Texas.com, and donate to my campaign. We can't do it without you. We've been told, which we don't believe, we've been told that unless you have really deep pockets, you can't go anywhere in a campaign like this. But I beg to differ with you. I think we can take this as far as we need to, all the way to the top. You
Right.
need to have a teacher at the table where every decision is being made. Please donate to my campaign. You can do that through Act Blue, and all those links are going to be posted as soon as this is over.
Go
You
through
can
'em,
do it
Crystal,
through
real quick. Crystal, go through them.
GoFundMe. Yes.
Act, go through them. Act Blue.
At Blue, GoFundMe. You can do it through my campaign web page. You can volunteer to walk with us. You can volunteer to make calls for us. We've
Right.
got, if you want to be involved in putting a teacher at the table, we've got so many ways that you can do it, but we definitely need your donation. And no donation is too large or too small. But together we can do this. I have no doubt in my mind that we could do this.
Also, too, you do not have to be a teacher to be involved in the campaign. Okay.
Yes,
This is a teacher driven campaign. I will say
yes,
that. You do not have to be a teacher to be involved in the
absolutely.
campaign. Okay.
Absolutely.
We want all hands on deck because a
Yes.
lot of the things that y'all are worried about, you have somebody at the table who is just as concerned.
Absolutely. And don't ever, ever, ever sleep on a teacher. Don't ever sleep on teachers. Okay. We've been there since the beginning. We're the ones who bring that knowledge forward and teach the philosophers and the doctors and the decision makers to think critically and to challenge their circumstances, challenge what's happening around them. That's what moves our society forward. Rebecca Williams, like we say every week, and we will say it this week, and we will be back with you next week. Remember, Crystal Dillard for Texas, log on there, make your donation, and together, Rebecca,
We
we
can
can do
do
it.
it.
See you
Also, this
later.
is 131. We're gonna see y'all this week. So y'all better
Yes.
answer the door when we come a knocking.
Bye-bye.
Bye guys.